I never expected a homeless girl to buy a balloon for a millionaire's son with her last coin. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was blinding, the air thick with the smell of roasted peanuts and cotton candy. The carnival pulsed with life, laughter echoing against the backdrop of joyful screams. Yet, there she was. Barefoot and lonely. A threadbare dress hung from her fragile frame. I could see her small hands trembling as she dug through her pocket. Each coin could have bought her a sliver of hope, a warm meal maybe. But the glint of a shiny balloon caught her eye. It floated like a dream above the sea of onlookers. Bright blue, the kind that promised magic and adventure. She hesitated, her heart racing. I could feel my own pulse quickening, just watching her. What was she thinking? Around us, children danced and squealed, their faces painted in colorful patterns. Behind her stood a boy in crisp, designer clothes, the millionaire's son. He was spoiled, entitled, blind to the beauty and simplicity, but today he gazed at her with a different light. The air crackled with tension, curious glances exchanged. I leaned closer, my chest tightening. What would happen if she went through with it? With one last breath, she placed her last coin on the wooden stall. It clinked against the surface, a small sound, but it echoed like thunder in the silence that followed. She took the balloon, her small fingers wrapping around the string as if it were a lifeline. The boy's eyes widened. Questions danced in the air. Who was she? Why would she sacrifice everything for a moment of joy? In that moment, the world faded. All I felt was the weight of her choice. As she turned, a slight smile crossed her lips, a flicker of hope in the shadows of her struggles. But then, a sudden shout shattered the moment. A nearby man, agitated, pointed at her with a face twisted in anger. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Look at her. What a disgrace. His words sliced through the festive atmosphere like a cruel dagger. I held my breath as she froze, the balloon drifting higher with every heartbeat. The boy's expression twisted, shock giving way to a frown. I sat on the edge of my seat, the tension unbearable. Would he defend her or join in the judgment? As he hesitated, I could feel the breath of the crowd, a tidal wave of emotion pushing against us all, and just like that, I knew everything was about to change. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I felt my heart drop with the man's words. The laughter and joy around us faded like the colors of the setting sun. The crowd, once vibrant, now pulsed with a dark energy, eyes narrowing in judgment. It was as if the entire carnival had come to a standstill, bearing witness to a moment that would bear the weight of consequence for years to come. The girl stood frozen, her grip on the string tightening, as if it might anchor her to the ground. Her eyes, those deep wells of struggle and hope, darted around, desperately searching for refuge. And there he was, the millionaire's son, caught in the crossfire of his own privilege. I watched as he shifted his weight, uncertainty weaving through his posture. Would he choose companionship or conformity? I held my breath, a silent prayer threading through my thoughts. But in that heavy silence, the boy stepped forward. Stop, he said, his voice cracking before he could find its strength. The crowd shifted, disbelief rippling through them. She's not a disgrace. You don't understand. His defiance hung in the air, and in that moment, he became something more than the privileged life he was born into. He found a flicker of courage to stand against the tide, but that spark quickly extinguished as the angered man approached, his face a storm cloud. What do you know about her? You think you can save her with a kind word? The man's disdain dripped with venom, and my heart ached for the girl, caught in a whirlwind not of her making. She was just a child, yearning for an ounce of kindness, yet here she stood before a firing squad of judgment. The boy hesitated, his gaze shifting to the girl. "What's your name?" he asked softly, as if she were a delicate creature afraid to flee. She blinked, eyes shining with an unshed flood of tears, wrapped too tightly in hurt to speak. "Bella," she finally whispered, as if saying it aloud might make it real. "Bella," he repeated, and for a moment, something indefinable passed between them. A connection born of shared pain, yet worlds apart. The murmurs of the crowd faded, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope, a tiny flame against a chilling wind. But just as quickly as it sparked, darkness loomed again. "Get away from her. You're playing with fire." An older woman chimed in from the back. "She's nothing but trouble." A weight pressed on my chest as pity and fear twined together, wrapping around Bella's fragile form. Those two threads pulled tighter, squeezing the life out of her small frame, while the boy, for all his naive bravery, stood unshielded against the growing storm of hostility. Then, as if the universe conspired to deepen the turmoil, a loud crash erupted nearby. The sound of something breaking. A display table exploded into the ongoing chaos, drawing attention away momentarily. Eyes diluted with malice turned toward the disturbance, and the golden opportunity hung before me like the prize of a lottery win. "Bella!" The boy's voice broke once more, laced with desperation as he took a step back, shielding her with his body. "We can leave. We don't have to shut up." The man roared, turning to face the boy. "You're only making things worse." Without thinking, I rushed forward, heart racing, desperate to protect the girl who had tried to make the impossible choice. "She made a beautiful sacrifice," I shouted, my gut fighting against the chaos that churned around us. Bella whispered a small thank you that barely reached my ears. Suddenly, the boy turned toward me, an unspoken question echoing in his eyes. I felt the urgency radiate from his presence. Could we really escape this? Beneath the weight of disapproval, I sensed something more in the younger boy, as if, maybe, we could together find a way to peel back the layers of misunderstanding. But I also saw a shadow growing behind his defiance, the fear of truly stepping away from the life he was born into. "My father will hear about this, and you'll be sorry." The man snarled, sizing us up with the intensity of a predator. Just then, a hand unexpectedly rested on my shoulder, grounding me. I turned to see an older man, the owner of one of the carnival stalls, his face etched with compassion. "You have to leave. Take her with you," he urged in a whisper, glancing at the instability around us. Heart racing against the clock, adrenaline surged. "We will," I replied, feeling a sense of unyielding determination mixing with the kindness of a stranger. But before we could make our escape, the boy's expression shifted from defiance to despair, as the anguish of his privileged life crashed against the stark contrast of Bella's reality. "Two can't," he stammered, sinking back into the weight of expectation and fear that came with his name. The balloon, now drifting further away, captured the sunlight one last time before vanishing into the tumultuous clouds. In that heartbeat, the crowd roared in agreement and discontent, chanting under their breath as the tension reached a boiling point. We were losing our window. I felt Bella's grip tighten on the balloon string as if that fragile lifeline could guide us to safety. But would it be enough? With the weight of the world pressing against me, I knew I had to act quickly to break through the barrier holding him captive. Yet just as I took a step forward, an unexpected voice cut through the chaos. "They're just kids, let them go." The unexpected ally emerged from the crowd, a young woman with fierce determination in her eyes. As she pushed her way forward, I caught a glimmer of the hope I desperately clung to. But there was no escaping the undeniable reality that hovered above us like a dark cloud. What if all of this simply led us deeper into the shadows? In the disarray, Bella's small voice rang out clear and unwavering. "You see me, though. You choose to see me." As the words hung in the air, charged with the raw essence of truth, I turned to see the millionaire's son battling against the tempest of chaos within him. What would he choose to face next in the aftermath of this moment? The ground was shifting beneath us, and with it, everything we thought we knew was unraveling. As they gathered, the crowd swelled around us, tension electric. The balloon, now high above, floated far from our reach, an unreachable dream. And it was then I realized that long after this day, no matter how much we chose to deny our destinies, they were already scripted against the sprawling sky, swirling in colors too vivid to ignore. Would we remind ourselves how to rise, or would we drown under our own apathy? A choice stood before us, a precipice of conflict yet to unfold. I grasped Bella's hand, ready for whatever came next, as the sun dipped lower, allowing the shadows to grow long, whispering of our uncertain fate. As the crowd thickened, uncertainty clung to us like mist. The young woman who had spoken out caught my gaze, a fire ignited in her eyes. "We can't just let this happen," she implored, her voice determined despite the turmoil surrounding us. "There are more of us than them. We can take a stand," but the once vibrant carnival had morphed into a maelstrom of vitriol and fear. As we stood frozen, I felt the weight of the moment pressing against my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. Bella's hand trembled in mine, her small figure seeming even smaller in the chaos as she struggled against the tide, the string of the balloon looming above us, a shimmering embodiment of innocence lost. The millionaire's son glanced at Bella, then back at the crowd, his conflict threading itself deeper into the creases of his brow. I could see the walls he had built around himself starting to crack, exposing the turmoil beneath. "It's not just about me," he said quietly, his voice barely rising above the din. "This doesn't just affect us. It affects her too." "Then do something," the young woman urged, stepping forward as if she could pierce through the oppressive haze hanging over us. Unexpected warmth surged through me, bolstered by her words. Maybe there was still a chance, still a flicker of hope we could grasp onto amidst this storm, but as the man who had initially confronted Bella stepped closer, his face contorted with rage, my heart sank. "Your father will be in touch," he spat at the boy, the threat slithering through the air like a snake preparing to strike. The crowd murmured, caught in a dance of expectation, their eyes narrowing with judgment. Still, in that charged moment, I saw the flicker of defiance reignite within the boy. He appeared to rise above the hostility, pulling strength from the connection we were forming around Bella. "I won't let you treat her like this," he declared, raising his chin defiantly, and just like that, the tension escalated. The man, seemingly caught off guard by the boy's challenge, halted, realizing that the winds had begun to shift. That I dared to inch closer to Bella, where time stretched, echoing with the silence of her unspoken fears. "Bella, listen to me," I whispered. "Whatever happens, you are strong. You are more than what they think. You are seen. You are valued." Her eyes glimmered, a mixture of trepidation and resolve brewing within them. "But what if that doesn't matter?" she murmured, her voice a fragile thread. "What if they just see me as trouble?" A heart-wrenching reality hung in the air. But something within me pushed back against despair. "Then we will show them," I promised fiercely, the weight of the moment igniting a fire deep within me. "We will show them who you really are." The crowd around us began to shift, murmurs amalgamating into a collective ripple. I glanced at the young woman, who appeared ready to mount a charge against the sea of hostility. "How?" she demanded. "What do we do, together?" the boy declared, his voice gaining momentum. "We stand together," but just as we began to look inward, bonding with newfound courage, the ground beneath us rumbled ominously. A figure emerged from the shadows, approaching with an aura of authority that sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. It was the boy's father, the millionaire who had instilled a legacy of privilege and tariff. His mere presence weighed heavy, an immutable truth draped in silk. "Step aside," he commanded the crowd, probing with a gaze that pinched at hearts and swallowed words. "What's going on here?" The air thickened as the reality of our position settled upon us. Shadows eclipsed hope as the cry of the vulnerable and the might of the established collided. I could feel Bella's small hand shake in mine. Would she become the casualty to this class war, a struggle that portrayed her as just a momentary inconvenience in someone's grand narrative? But the boy, emboldened, lifted his chin, refusing to back down before a tide drawn from a legacy of disdain. "This isn't right," he declared, the words brimming with resolve, pulling courage from the uncertainty around us. It can't be about money or status anymore. Before he could continue, a shout came from the back of the crowd, the voice punctuated with fire. She deserves better than being tossed aside. She's one of us. A wave of solidarity surged through, voices rising, filling the air with strength and unison, an unexpected avenue in the face of oppression. For a fleeting heartbeat, hope glittered in the despairing shadows as Bella's grip loosened, catching the breeze of connection ascending higher, but then, I felt it, the looming shadow of fear crackled through the crowd, igniting a split. The billionaire's son looked toward me, his eyes asking unspoken questions, grappling with the magnitude of his father's influence coiling around like a serpent. Would he stand firm against the legacy laid upon him, or would he succumb to the very fears that crippled so many before him? "Bring her to me," his father barked, voice slicing the air like a blade. Panic spiraled within me as the world seemed to tip dangerously. Tension snapped around us, the crowd swelling in both anxiety and resolution. Bella was a star within a constellation of struggle, but would she burn bright enough in that moment of decision? "Whatever you do, don't let go of that string," I whispered to her, an urgent plea laden in each word. "It's our lifeline. It's you." Yet, as if answering my unspoken prayer with a twist of fate, the boy extended his hand to hers, his voice laced with an imploring plea. "You're stronger than they know, Bella. Don't let them diminish your light." Laughter erupted from the crowd, a deep-seated laugh defiant against their fears, a laugh birthed from unexpected kindness surging forth like a reclaiming tide. It echoed around us, rising above the din, pushing against the walls of privilege and reclaiming a moment of dignity. But just then, the ground beneath us rumbled again, and the weight of our decisions loomed ever heavier. "Now," I urged, adrenaline slicing through the chaos. That instant, an unexpected silence blanketed the crowd, cloaked beneath the shadows of uncertainty. The boy's father, ready to unleash his fury, finally caught the glimmer of our united front. But before his eyes could transfix onto Bella, the air still crackled around us like split lightning, and I felt the string of the balloon tug against the current pulling us apart, and it was then, amid the shifting tide, that I saw a flicker of realization dawn across the boy's face as he stepped back, an understanding of the choice weighing heavier than prestige or influence. Would he prioritize casting everything aside for momentary freedom, or would he allow the precarious lives around him to dissolve under the weight of his lineage? In the final breath of that moment, I realized the gravity of the moment, suspended between hope and demise. Would we rise together, or would we shatter beneath the weight of ignorance and expectation? The ground shifted one last time, the crowd thrumming with energy as the millionaires intertwined into one united pulse, prepared to claim our fight, while the balloon drifted higher, painted against a sky of uncertainty. And then, Bella turned her gaze to me, determination igniting within her eyes, as the shadows of delay began to collapse with the crescendo of truth. What followed, I could hardly conceive, but I knew with certainty that our choices writ upon the fabric of this night would forever alter the course of what we believed possible. The tension in the air crackled like static electricity, each heartbeat a reminder that the delicate moment could shatter at any second. Everything hung in the balance, and the shadows of the boy's father loomed larger, threatening to engulf us all. But as I locked eyes with Bella, a new understanding began to crystallize, not just within her, but for all of us. "You have a choice, Bella," I whispered fiercely, my heart racing. "You can allow yourself to be their victim, or you can find your voice in this madness." The boy squeezed her hand for reassurance, his own uncertainty mingling with determination. "Well, face whatever they throw at us together," he vowed, looking into her eyes, willing her to believe. Bella's grip tightened, her small fingers wrapping around the warmth of affirmation, as if drawing strength from the shared resolve around her. As her gaze shifted back to the crowd, I sensed a shift within her, a kindling of rebellion amidst fear, as if she were ready to take that stand the young woman had called for earlier. I turned to the young woman herself, searching for a sign of hope amid the chaos. Beside her stood others, faces marked by grit and resolve, willing to stand with us against the tide. "Now is our chance," I urged, raising my voice to carry through the static. "Let them know we're not backing down." With a surge of adrenaline, the energy from the crowd rippled outward. "Together!" Someone shouted from the back, and it sounded like a starting gun fired amidst the panic. Hope sprouted anew, blooming amid the despair, as people began to step forward, raising their voices in unison. It was a chorus of defiance rising against all odds, echoing off the walls of the carnival that had once embraced festivity and now delivered pain, but just as quickly, a deep rumble surged from the depths of our tumultuous gathering. The crowd seemed to sway, a gnarled tree bending ominously under the weight of a storm. The boy's father, seemingly more annoyed than afraid, stepped forward with menacing confidence. "Enough of this nonsense," he declared, his voice booming like thunder, striking chords of fear and silence momentarily across the sea of faces. Then, in that precarious breath of stillness, Bella lifted her chin slightly, as if awakening to the realization of the intimidation unraveling around us. "You don't get to decide who I am," she declared, her fragile voice resonating through the din, steadying like a lighthouse against the storm. "Bella," I whispered, a mix of concern and awe wrapping around my heart. Could she truly stand against everything her surroundings had imposed upon her? Yet, there was something fiercely beautiful in her defiance, an ember crackling into flame. The boy stood beside her, a guardian, offering all the strength he could muster. "You're not alone in this," he said, sharing her burden. "We're all behind you." But just then, something shifted in the Crodan, unexpected turn of events igniting the air. From the periphery, a young girl, dust-covered and wild-eyed, pushed through the throng. I recognized her, a girl from the neighborhood, often dismissed but brave in her innocent bravery. Clutching a weathered coin that shimmered in the dying sun, she cried out, "I saved this so I could buy a balloon just like the one you're holding." Gasps rippled through the crowd, disbelief mingling with warmth. At her feet, a few coins, just enough to afford a balloon, lay scattered on the asphalt. But she wasn't just asking, she was challenging convention with this small act of generosity, a beautiful testament to giving. Even amidst uncertainty, the scene unfolding felt surreal. It illuminated an unexpected thread of kindness that wove through the tension, bridging gaps between the haves and have-nots. "Use it, it's meant for you," she implored, her voice grounded in a raw conviction, and with those few words, the weight belly down in my chest lifted, awakening something profound in a world bathed in fear and disdain. I glanced at Bella, whose face glimmered as if kissed by the sun. In that moment, it was not the money that resonated, it was the act itself, an expression of solidarity that inspired the crowd. Would they see the connection blossoming amidst despair? The boy's father, caught off guard by this unforeseen display, faltered. "This is ridiculous," he barked, but the crowd was shifting against him, the momentum swirling as if feeding on the bond forged in innocence. "Why is it ridiculous?" someone challenged, the voices rising with vigor. "She's showing us how to care." As the noise crescendoed, I felt my heart pound in tandem, the rhythm of a heartbeat echoing through the crowd, a unity forming despite our socio-economic differences. They were mundane tales woven into the fabric of humanity. I found myself longing for that connection, that raw understanding that we were fighting against the same force determined to keep us apart. But just as hope ignited in strides, paranoia wormed its way back in through the cracks. "This won't end well for any of you," the boy's father warned, his voice low and sinister, pulling the edges of reality taut around us. And then, like a dark wave crashing through, I saw him reach for his phone, the oppressive weight of his connected world wrapping around him. A coordinator, perhaps, a power move to rally reinforcements, wielding his privilege with expertise. "Run," I whispered frantically to Bella and the boy. "Now. Before it's too late." But as we turned toward the escape, Bella hesitated, drawn into the chaos of connection that had transformed her entire being. "We can't leave them," she called out, her voice trembling with a mix of determination and fear. "They need us." In that moment the ground shook beneath us as if our very intentions were being contested. I could feel the permanence of the choices made tonight hanging in the air, punctuated by the heavy sound of footsteps approaching fast. Would Bella find the strength to remain rooted or succumb to the weight of the storm threatening our newfound light? The uncertain horizon stretched out before us, blurred by both anticipation and dread, crystallizing into the evening air. As shadows deepened into night, unexpected kindness glimmered like stars in the black fabric of our lives, yet darkness loomed ever closer, hungry to swallow us whole. And in the twilight, fate held its breath, ready to alter the course of our intertwined destinies. The air thickened, the heavy footsteps and shouts echoing down the street, but Bella stood resolute, her eyes shining bright with an urgency that demanded attention. She was no longer a mere girl lost in a world of shadows, she was a beacon, and her warmth cast a light that gripped our hearts. "Please," she pleaded, her voice unwavering, "if we run now, we leave them behind. We won't just be running from him, we will be running from ourselves." The boy moved closer, chest heaving with a mix of adrenaline and resolve. "She's right," he voiced, his grip on her hand tightening. "There's strength here. If we stay, we fight for everyone." Around the chaotic scene, the faces of the crowd flickered with doubt while others began to nod, absorbed by Bella's courage, her belief in us all. It was then that I felt the cold hand of fear wrestle once more with flickers of hope ignited by her words. "What do you think will happen?" A man shouted from the crowd, his voice strained yet filled with the spark of rebellion. "They want us to cower. They want us to fracture and flee, together," echoed another voice, catching the wind and spreading like wildfire. With every word, every nod amongst a myriad of diverse faces, I began to witness the tapestry of humanity being woven anew. We were not just a group, we were a collective, intricately linked by our most profound vulnerabilities, yet each thread held its own distinct resilience. And the boy's father? He was a stone now, cold and unwavering, yet beneath that facade, I could see cracks beginning to form, like ice under warmth. Disbelief danced in his eyes as he witnessed the crescendo unfurling against his tyranny, and anger surged to the forefront. "You're all fools," he shouted, his voice rising above the din. "You think this will change anything? Stand with them, what do you gain?" "I will break you know," Bella interrupted boldly, her voice silencing his thunderous threats. "You can't break us, because you don't understand what we're made of," and in that luminous moment, I witnessed something extraordinary. People began to step out of the shadows, one by one, voicing their own truths, their own stories, offering pieces of themselves to the tumult. A mother identified her own child in Bella's ardent face, the lines of her past spilling out in memories of strength and struggle. A sister found her own fears reflected in the boy standing steadfast beside Bella. It became a blossoming bouquet, each petal a narrative intertwined with another in our unexpected solidarity, yet, as the emotions boiled over like water nearing a boil, a piercing scream cut through the air. It was the young girl from before, the one who had brought the coin. "Help! Someone's there!" she cried out, pointing toward the alleyway, her wild eyes wide with panic. Instinct kicked in, and like bees swarming to defend their hive, we turned as one. The shadows shifted, revealing figures slipping through the back streets, a gang encroaching upon us, silhouetted against the darkness that threatened to engulf our burgeoning unity. The boy's father smirked, a predator relishing the fear of prey. "See? This is what you wanted? A battle?" But in the brewing storm of emotions underfoot, I saw resolve upon the faces surrounding me. The spirit of that young girl reignited something primal within each of us. Bella's hand, still clasped tightly in the boy's, seemed to pulse with a shared heartbeat, a connection pulsating through our collective hope, echoing that we would face the storm together. "Now," I shouted, waving my arms, urging our gathered strength, "now we fight back." The cityscape around us trembled, yet within the heart of the crowd, a refracted light began to build. Someone threw an empty soda can toward the approaching menace, and it ricocheted off the pavement with a clang. Another joined in, a spray of courage exploding across the gathered souls as if igniting the embers smoldering in our hearts. "How can you face them?" the boy's father scoffed, stepping slightly back, unease creeping onto his face. "They'll crush you." "We are not weak," Bella shouted, her spirit aflame. "We are hope and strength, we will not crumble before you." Suddenly, as if summoned by desperation, the crowd surged forward, the boy and Bella at the forefront, sparks surrounding them as which lives within the shadows faced fears and rose to challenge, and then, a sudden crack sharp, like lightning slicing the air. The boy's father raised his phone, a blinding flash ignited, illuminating the faces in hues of stark terror, but it became clear that bulletproof resolve held them together, even as the storm menaced at their doors. Just as darkness threatened to devour us, something extraordinary happened. Another figure emerged from the depths of the alleyway. My breath hitched as I recognized the familiar outline. It was the boy's mother, fierce as a lioness, eyes blazing with intent. She seemed to shimmer with a power that was both tender and merciless. "Let them go," she called out, her voice ringing true through the chaos, a clarion of hope cutting through despair. "All of you, stand strong." In that moment, everything shifted. Hope burst forth, and we became only an unstoppable tide washing against the dark intent of the boy's father, a surge fueled by courage, compassion, and connection as we faced the shadows once more. But just then, the boy's father reached back, revealing a weapon. My heart raced in disbelief as he brandished it toward the crowd, and panic enveloped the air like an electric coil. The atmosphere thickened, a fever pitch rising like molten lava on the edge of an explosion. The facade of bravery began to waver as the barrel gleamed ominously beneath the streetlights. Would the love we fought for be drowned in unyielding fear? In the heartbeat that stretched, anticipation clawing at my chest, I realized the stark truth: I could not predict what would happen next, and the gripping uncertainty loomed larger than ever, setting the stage for a critical clash that would redefine everything we held dear. Would we meander into the depths of despair, or rise as a formidable force in our community's story? The question hung heavy, resolute, as the evening air thickened with fate's relentless breath. The moment hung, fragile as gossamer, poised on the brink of chaos. The boy's father's weapon glinted in the dim light, and every heart in the crowd raced in the rhythm of anxiety. I could feel the weight of hope teetering under the strain of fear, a seesaw of raw emotion swaying dangerously close to tipping into despair. "Put it down," Bella called, her voice steady, unwavering even as tremors of adrenaline coursed through her. It was a stark contrast to the heartbeat of terror pounding within me. Her courage was infectious, but there was a quiet dread building inside me, threading through the solidarity we had forged. "What if our strength wasn't enough? I will not ask again," the boy's father shouted, anger coursing through his veins as he steadied the weapon toward the crowd. Each face twisted with concern, fear splayed across features once brimming with resolve. "You're just children. What makes you think you can stand against me?" But then, as if summoned by the deep-rooted conviction shared amongst us, the boy's mother stepped forward. "They aren't just children, they are the future," she declared, unwavering as she positioned herself protectively beside her son. "And you will not take that from them. Stay back," he roared, desperation and rage mixing in his voice, as though he feared his own inability to control the storm he had ignited. In that heartbeat, the girl's scream echoed again. "Help!" It was sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Someone's trapped." Another voice piped up, urgency eclipsing the initial fear. We turned, every head snapping toward the mouth of the alley from which the girl had pointed. Shapes shimmered in shadows, forms clawing at the edges of our vision. "Change," Bella whispered, as if the soft air could carry their plight to our hearts, urging us to focus, to unite in this moment of crisis. "We cannot allow this pain to continue." The boy's mother, fiery as a phoenix rising from ash, pressed ahead, her arms extending toward the crowd. "Come on. We can't just stand here." Finding strength in our shared despair, I felt a tide of something profound push against the dread clinging to me. A chorus of voices began to rise, thread woven tightly through the tapestry of fear and determination. "We won't let fear divide us." With no time to lose, a few people began edging forward, their resolve stiffened by the energy of hope flowing through the crowd. "Let's go. We cannot leave anyone behind." Together, we piled in, side by side, moving as one organism, hearts beating in sync as we charged toward the source of the girl's perpetuating cry. The boy's face twisted in confusion, his hand still gripping Bella's. "What are we doing?" "You can't just. We have to be brave, not only for ourselves but for them," Bella countered fiercely, her eyes gleaming with an unyielding spirit. "We can't stand by and let fear win." Shouts of encouragement rang through the crowd, rekindling a sense of purpose, no more than a whisper amplifying into a roar. Together, as we moved deeper into the alley, the shadows lengthened, coiling like serpents, yet hope shimmered like dawn breaking on the horizon, illuminating paths where there had only been darkness. We could make it. We could save a life, but then, just as we reached the alley's mouth, a new sound broke through the madness, the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. The boy's father, it appeared, had crossed a line, tossing aside control for wrath, sending a storm of chaos spiraling toward us. He unleashed a fearsome wave of retribution that swept through the crowd and sent us skittering backward, the warmth of camaraderie flaring suddenly as confusion spread like wildfire. In the midst of this tumult, my thoughts twisted and turned. What if we weren't strong enough? What if warriors armed with faith were no match for his rage? Suddenly, a figure slammed into my side. It was the little girl from before, eyes wide with feral panic, a small faded balloon still tethered to her wrist. "They're coming!" she panted, frantically pointing behind me. "We have to hurry," a low growl thrummed in my chest. I turned, and they were. Their men loomed at the alley's entrance, shapes distorted under the flickering light, shadows thrusting ahead. They were a wave with sinister force, fueled by anger and desperation, approaching as if the night itself had twisted in their favor. Panic threatened to surface again, but just then I caught Bella's eye, an unspoken connection flickering like a spark between us. The crowd behind me adjusted, mirroring her resolve, a tide of determination surging forward. We wouldn't turn away now, just as I thought we might face them. Everything shifted again. A powerful voice pierced through the fog of confusion, rich and booming, "Your fear only makes you weaker." It came from the boy's mother, a fortress incarnate, commanding our attention. "Stand with me," she shouted, every syllable another stitch binding us all together. "We are stronger than they can imagine." That was when I realized this was not just about facing the boy's father or the relentless shadows creeping toward us. It was about inviting everyone to share in the hope that could rise from this dark night, no matter how many cracks the darkness had created in our hearts. But just as unity began to swell, an unexpected sound cut through our resolve, the soft tinkling of that balloon popping against a jagged edge. My heart sank as the bright color burst into the dim night, releasing its life into the ether, and I felt that palpable connection snap like an old twig. No. The girl cried, clasping her hands to her chest as if the rupture had struck a fatal blow. Her small frame staggered as she crumpled to the ground, sobs racking her little form. It was as if fate itself laughed wickedly at the beauty we struggled to uphold, whispering that even the simplest joys could be so terrifyingly transient. The air turned electric, laced with grief and uncertainty, swirling around us like a tempest. But even through that unraveling, I felt a charge of determination flaring anew. There, in the darkness where warmth had flickered moments before, I gleaned something deeply unsettling. The boy's father had been brought to new heights of fury, eyes glistening with a malevolence I hadn't seen before, and I realized if we did not gather every last fragment of strength now, not just for ourselves, but for that girl and all others like her, we might just lose everything in this fight. That I worked my way back to the forefront. "We have to take it back for her," I shouted, breathing deeply as the collective hearts inched nearer the edge of resurgence, united in this unpredictable storm of emotion. "For all of us, for hope." They echoed, a swell rising against the encroaching darkness, the remnants of despair erupting into something beautifully magnificent. But just as resolve strengthened, I saw the boy's father, eyes blaring, grasping for control one last time, desperation reflected in his stance. He aimed once more and, in that profound silence, a hesitance evoked. Would this be the moment that shattered our unity, or would it stitch together a bond beyond fear? And right then, reality split in two, each potential outcome looming heavier than the last, both avenues of heartbreak and hope indistinguishable. As we gathered our courage to push forward, a chilling whisper of doubt brushed my soul. Would we be shrouded in darkness, or would our light break through? The answer hung suspended in the air, urging us on, promising that this moment would shape our fates forever. The shadows inched closer, their silhouettes expanding like dark fingers reaching for the flickering flames of our collective courage. The air crackled with tension, thick enough to strangle the fragile hope we had clung to so fiercely. I could hardly breathe as the boy's father stood there, weapon poised, anger raging in the depths of his eyes as though we were all mere pawns in a game he no longer knew how to play. "Get away from him!" shouted the boy's mother, but I could see the fissures of uncertainty in her stance, a chink in her armor that threatened to widen with each passing moment. "Please," the little girl whimpered, her face a mask of confusion and heartbreak. She clutched the tattered remnants of her balloon around her wrist as if it were an anchor, somewhere to cling when darkness threatened to swallow her whole. That I took a step closer to the boy's father, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Every step felt like walking toward a precipice, the euphoria of camaraderie still shimmering in the air, but overshadowed by a looming dread. "You're not the only one who's lost," I called out, my voice breaking against the weight of my emotions. "We can work together. You don't have to do this." The father's expression flickered between torment and rage. "Lost?" he echoed, a bitter laugh spilling from his lips. "What do you know of loss?" "This world has already taken everything from me," I hesitated. His words struck like a bitter truth, resonating deep within me. What if he was a reflection of us all, fragile, battling against a history that had threatened to erase every trace of our humanity? My breath hitched. What if his rage stemmed from a place of hurt? "Then let's change that," Bella shouted, her voice a beacon. I turned to her, eyes pooling with unshed tears, and found the strength I needed in the warmth of her unwavering spirit. "He has his pain, and we have ours, but it doesn't have to be a cycle. We can heal together." But the boy's father only scoffed at her suggestion, spitting out impossible promises. "Nothing will ever change. They'll only take more. You can't trust them." In that moment, something sparked in me, a deep, insistent flame of resolve kindled in the darkest corners of desperation. The little girl, forgotten in the tension of the moment, began to inch toward the boy's father, her small body trembling but undeterred. "Please don't hurt my friend," she pleaded, her voice small yet unwavering. "We can be together and be happy, like we used to be." Her innocence cut through the darkness, the tenderness of her plea igniting something profound in the boy's father's heart. For just an instant, I could see the cracks forming in his armor, a glimmer of vulnerability in the storm of his fury, but just as hope surged within me, a haunting sound shattered our fragile alliance. There were sirens approaching in the distance, red lights pulsing and cutting through the blackness of night. My pulse quickened, urgency throbbing in my veins. "Time is running out," I mouthed to Bella, my heart galloping with fear. "We need to act now." The boy's father, sensing the shift in atmosphere, turned toward the sound, eyes wide with realization. "They'll take me away, everyone will be taken away." Desperation laced his voice, frantic and wild. I could see the panic rising in him like a tide, roaring against his better judgment. With every ounce of courage I could muster, I stepped forward, heart hammering. "You're not alone in this. Look at all of us. We've endured, we've fought through. Together, we can break this cycle, we can begin fresh." The little girl took the final step, standing before him, her small face a picture of unwavering determination. "You don't have to be scared anymore, we're here." It was as if time suspended, the world narrowing until only the boy's father and the little girl existed in that moment. The chaos melted into silence as he regarded her, his gaze flickering with something akin to hope, if only for an instant. But then, the sirens blared loud and clear, the distant lights carving their way through the gloom. Like a dam bursting, his rage flooded back, drowning any glimmer of that fragile connection. "No. I won't let them take me." With a howl, he raised the weapon again, eyes wild with fear and fury. No. Bella cried out, but even as she reached forward, a powerful shadow loomed over the boy's father. From behind, the embodiment of his fears materialized, a monstrous specter of his grief propelled by the anger of a past that wouldn't release him. "Stop!" I screamed, but the boy's father was lost to the storm within him, rage erupting like a volcano. A single shot rang out, the sound reverberating through the alley, shattering reality. In that crushing moment, silence fell. The weight of dread hung heavy in the air, a pregnant pause stretching infinitely. My heart stopped, that terrifying snapshot of life frozen as the smoke curled around us like a ghost of peace we could never reach. But then, as if time sped up again, everything erupted in chaos once more. People scrambled, terror reignited all around us. I turned, adrenaline shooting through my body as I searched for the little girl, for Bella, for any flicker of humanity in the pandemonium, and then I saw her little balloon, still floating upwards toward the sky, oblivious to the turmoil below. Just as I reached for it, the boy's father stumbled backward, hands falling limply to his side. A shattered man who had lost what little remained of his control. And in that fleeting moment, a revelation hit me like a lightning bolt. What if this wasn't just about fear or rage? What if we were all tied to the same string of fate, caught in an intricate dance where one small shift could tip the scales entirely? As the sirens drew near, I grabbed Bella's arm, pulling her close. "We have to go now," I urged, the weight of everything pressing upon my heart. But then I froze. A shadow passed over us, and I turned, breath hitching in my throat. Emerging from the chaos was a figure, the boy's father, stained with the weight of our shared existence. He looked up, and our eyes locked. What I saw in his gaze was a kaleidoscope of regret, sorrow, and longing, unraveled threads of connection woven together into a single heartbreaking tapestry. "Help me," he whispered, a plea not just for his survival, but for the chance to rewrite the very fabric of our stories. And just as I stepped closer to bridge that chasm of fear and understanding, that fragile moment swayed like a pendulum poised to tip into the churning abyss of uncertainty. The sirens blaring in the distance grew louder, a reminder that our fates were about to bind together in ways none of us anticipated. The chaos erupted as if time itself had unraveled, splintering into shards of panic and uncertainty. People clamored to escape, their cries echoing off the cold brick walls that had seen far too much suffering. The flickering lights of the approaching sirens painted our faces in hues of dread and urgency, blurring the lines between friend and foe in an instant. "Help me," the boy's father breathed again, desperation etched across his features. The sight of him, once a catalyst for anger and fear, now stirred something deeper within me, a plea that resonated with the wounds carved into my own heart. "Alice, we can't." Bella called, gripping my arm tightly. Her eyes darted between the boy's father and the darkening street. "He's dangerous," but what was more dangerous? A man drowning in his own despair, or the collective pain we all carried? I took a step forward, defiance igniting in my chest. "Please," I said softly, though my heart trembled with trepidation. "What happened to you doesn't have to end with more violence. We can help you find another way." That he looked at me, his expression a tapestry of confusion and rage, as though he were wrestling with a tempest within. The boy's small voice broke through the chaos, calling to his father. "Dad, please. I want you to be okay." The innocence in those words pierced through the turmoil like a beam of light, illuminating the darkness spiraling around us. But even as the boy's father seemed to waver, shadows in the dim alley began to take form. Figures emerged, moving stealthily among the debris, their intentions cloaked in secrecy. It was a different kind of fear that surfaced in my gut, the kind that twisted the very essence of my being. "Run!" Bella shouted, her voice ringing out against the shrill wail of the sirens. The air crackled with tension, and in that fleeting moment, hope felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter. We turned to flee, but not before I caught sight of the boy's father, still paralyzed between a past he couldn't escape and a future he now feared. That a rogue thought flitted through my mind: what if he was our greatest ally? The crossroads of our lives intertwined in a dangerous dance, each misstep echoing consequences we couldn't foresee. I couldn't let him slip into the shadows. "Not yet, stay close," I yelled, rushing toward him as desperation clawed at my insides. The sirens thundered behind us, the sound clawing at the edges of my sanity, yet I dared to reach out, to grasp that elusive thread connecting us all. "You're not alone. We are stronger together." But he shook his head, anguish twisting his features as years of grief erupted within him. "No. You don't understand. They'll take me away from my family. I can't let them." Those very words tumbled from his lips like bricks falling from a crumbling wall. My pulse quickened as I fought against the chaos that threatened to split me apart. What if his fear was not unfounded? What if what lay beyond those sirens was an abyss from which he would never return? In that instant, something like clarity washed over me. I remembered the little girl, the one who had dared to speak up, who had hoped for something beyond her circumstances. What if within each of us, there was still that flicker of innocence? That stubborn refusal to let grief envelop us completely. Please, I implored again, desperation tightening my throat. I know you've lost so much, but if we don't try now, we'll lose so much more. Change can begin here, with us. I desperately sought for kindred spirits among the wreckage of our lives. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled my gaze away from the boy's father for just a heartbeat, but it was enough. It was not just unspeakable terror I could sense in the darkness surrounding us, it was anger, vengeance. Get down! Bella shouted, her voice breaking through the fog of fear as she pushed me to the ground. I barely had time to react before blaring lights flooded the alleyway, illuminating shadows lurking at the edges. Within moments, law enforcement officers flooded in, their uniforms a stark contrast to the crumbling surroundings. Fear surged in the boy's father's eyes as he stumbled back, hands raised in surrender, the weapon he had held now forgotten at his feet. Step away from the child. An officer barked, voice cold and commanding. The world seemed to hold its breath, tension coiling tighter around us until it felt as though we might snap. Wait! I called out, scrambling to my feet. He's not a threat. He just needs help. Get down. Another officer ordered, and Bella stepped protectively in front of the little boy, shielding him as if he were her own. I glanced back at the boy's father, seeing the panic that had overtaken him once more as he backed away, trapped between his demons and the unwelcome presence of authority. And then it happened. In the blink of an eye, he turned, darting into the shadows, driven by something primal and instinctual. Instinctively, I reached out, a part of me desperate to pull him back from the edge of darkness that threatened to consume us all. Stop! I screamed, but the sirens drowned my plea, and in the thick of that moment, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut: we had lost him, perhaps forever. His pain had swallowed him whole, and now each of us was left to grapple with our own burdensome, unbearable cycle that threatened to repeat itself. Did we just fail? Bella whispered, and her voice shattered the soulful reckoning that had dawned in my heart. But before I could answer, the distant echoes of a child's laughter rang out, a sound that seemed so misplaced amid the chaos we had just endured. I turned, squinting toward the source, and found the little girl, her ethereal form standing in the light of the street lamp, clutching a bright, shiny balloon that danced joyfully against the darkening skies. Look, I caught a balloon. She giggled, her joy a stark contrast to the shadows that loomed. In that moment, I felt the fragile strings of hope tug at my heart once more, blending with the sorrow that still threatened to engulf us. Hold on to that, I urged softly. Don't ever let go. But as the world around us began to slip away, fractured in a chaotic whirlwind of sirens and shadows, I realized with a sinking dread that the battle was far from over. The boy's father was lost to us now, his retribution echoing into the night. And just as I turned to comfort Bella, a chilling thought gripped my heart: what if you were not the only one consumed by this darkness? The weight of fate lay heavy as the first drops of rain began to fall, and with it came an undeniable sense our story was still being written, and it would demand more from us than we ever thought possible. As the sky wept, I heard the ominous whispers of destiny unraveling before us, and I braced for the murmur of secrets yet to be revealed, knowing we stood at the precipice of something that would change everything. The rain began to fall softly, each drop a quiet reminder of the chaos that danced just outside our bubble of fragile hope. I could feel the cold metal of the world press against my skin, wrapping around me, as fleeting laughter echoed from the girl with the balloon. But the joy it carried felt mismatched against the backdrop of pain surrounding us. Bella drew in a shaky breath beside me as we pivoted, still rooted in place, our minds racing with thoughts we couldn't quite voice. The little girl twirled in the rain, that colorful balloon bobbing above her head, a beacon of innocence amid a darkening storm. She didn't seem to notice the shattered remnants of the world around her, lost in her own oasis of joy. Who is she? Bella whispered, her eyes trained on the girl, disbelief mingling with curiosity that I couldn't help but wonder the same. How could such light exist in times of such turmoil? It felt surreal, a dreamlike quality that tugged at my heart, urging me to approach her. But the rain thickened, a curtain of uncertainty shielding us all from the truths we were too terrified to confront. That I want to know, I said, the need pulling me forward, past the chaos, away from the sirens, toward the inexplicable spark of hope personified in that little girl. Maybe she knows something we don't. Bella hesitated, her hand gripping my arm, doubt swirling in her expression. What if she's lost? What if she holds the answer? I interrupted, my voice softer but determined. We can't run away from this. Not now. Not when we need answers the most. Reluctantly, Bella wrapped her fingers tighter around my wrist, her resolve wavering yet supportive. Together we moved toward the girl, who continued her dance in the rain, unbothered by the world's harsh realities. Hey there, I called gently, my voice barely rising above the patter of droplets tapping against asphalt. The girl halted her spinning, turning wide-eyed towards us, that balloon reflecting the flicker of rainbows against her small face. Hi. She chirped, bouncing with uncontainable energy. Want to play? I exchanged a glance with Bella. We just wanted to know where you got that beautiful balloon, she beamed, and it felt as if a ray of sunlight had pierced through the thick gray clouds. I found a nice man who had a party. Everyone was looking so happy, and I wished I could be happy too, even for a moment. Her small fingers tugged at the string, keeping the balloon tethered to her joy. What did you do? Bella asked, curiosity sparking in her voice. The girl's eyes glimmered, overflowing with innocence. I used my last coin, she said, glancing down at the damp ground before meeting our gazes with sincerity. I thought it would make me feel like I belonged, if just for a little while. A pang struck my heart at the revelation of her sacrifice, the simplicity of her desire layered within the complexities of our harrowing lives. For her, that balloon represented more than a childhood delight, it symbolized a sense of belonging, an experience she craved amidst the chaos. Did it work? I asked, the question escaping before I could contain it. That I don't know, she confessed, twirling once more, the laughter mingling with raindrops falling from the sky. But for now, it feels nice. The simplicity of her response wrapped around my heart like a warm embrace, staving off another tempest of despair threatening to surge. For all the weight of the world that pressed upon us, for all the darkness closing in, there had to be moments like this, notes of kindness emanating from unexpected sources. Just then, a deep voice shattered the moment. What are you doing here? Every ounce of joy fled the space as we turned to see a man striding forward, jaw set, a cold glint in his eyes. He wore a coat too formal for the occasion, his demeanor dripping with authority. My body tensed instinctively, ready to shield the girl from this harsh presence, fearing there might be more danger than relief in his presence. Who are you? I demanded, forcing strength into my shaky voice. The man stepped closer, fixing his gaze upon the little girl. It's time to go. You shouldn't be out here. His tone warned of danger, yet strangely, his eyes softened as they met hers, carrying the weight of an unspoken connection. But I'm happy. And I got a balloon. She exclaimed, proudly holding out the object of her recent joy. The man hesitated, the facade of authority slipping for just a moment as he looked down at her with something akin to affection, a stark contrast to the reliance on fear that governed most interactions in our lives. Something flickered in the air, the promise of understanding, perhaps, or a semblance of shared softness amid the chaos that had enveloped us all. Before I could grasp the enormity of the situation, he reached out slowly, taking a moment before he finally crouched beside her, his face almost gentle. You need to come with me, he repeated, but this time a part of him yearned to understand. It's not safe out here for anyone. But at that moment, as the rain soaked through my clothes and the weight of decisions loomed heavy in the air, a thought nagged persistently at my mind. The man, who was he to the girl? Did he represent the darkness, or could he, too, be a light she so desperately needed? My instinct screamed for me to keep her safe, while another part hesitated, wondering if he might hold answers to the tangled web we found ourselves caught in. Please, I said softly, stepping forward. Just give her a moment. She's just a kid. His eyes met mine, and we stood at a crossroads, the two of us, trapped by thin lines of fate that tugged against the threads of decisions made. Behind us, Bella remained silent, her gaze darting between us and the girl, unsure of the next step as the looming danger of the outside world pressed in. Then, as if the universe were tuning in to us, a loud clap of thunder erupted overhead, breaking the stillness of the moment. Alice! Bella shouted, panic spiraling up her voice. I turned to her just in time to see recognition dawning on her face, that icy realization urging me to look behind me. And that's when our world shattered once more, a storm brewing far more tempestuous than the rain, and I knew a truth that struck the heart: we were not just fighting for ourselves anymore. An undeniable weight of vulnerability enveloped the scene as I turned back, eyes wide with dread, to witness the boy's father emerge from the shadows once more, the flicker of desperation igniting in his stare as he lunged toward the girl, thrusting the turmoil of his own existence into our fragile reality. "No!" I screamed, the cry echoing against the howling winds, as my heart raced, terror gripping me anew. The rain blurred the edges of our shared fate, whispering the chaos of consequences that lay ahead, a web we were hopelessly entangled in, unsure of who would emerge unscathed. The emotional storm was only just beginning. The rain fell harder now, each drop hitting the ground with the weight of unspoken fear and untold stories. I stood frozen, heart hammering in my chest as the boy's father lunged toward the little girl, desperation etching every line of his stricken face. "What are you doing?" I yelled, my voice raw as I instinctively moved to shield her, each breath feeling like it might be my last. "Stay away from her," Bella shouted, stepping beside me, her own fear morphing into fierce protectiveness. The little girl clutched her balloon tighter, confusion swirling in her large, doe-like eyes as she darted between us, seeking refuge in the warmth of our protective stance. But I could see the boy's father was fraying at the edges of sanity, grappling with a tumultuous storm inside him. "Get back!" he barked, voice cracking under the weight of his own chaos. In that moment, he was no longer just a father cloaked in pride and privilege. He was real, raw, and above all lost. But wasn't that what we all were? I felt my heart break for him, resonating with the ghosts of my own grief. "Please, listen," I cried out, desperation surging through me like wildfire. "You don't have to do this. We're all struggling. We can help each other." It felt like the words held keys to a door I did not want to close, a wall I would not let be built anew, separating us from understanding. The rain pounded against us as if nature itself were urging us to connect. No more division, only unity. But he shook his head, eyes wild with fear, seemingly trapped in the web of his own regrets. "They won't listen. They never do. I'll lose everything if you don't help me." The anguish pouring from him beckoned to a part of me longing to bridge the divide, hoping, praying for understanding to radiate from our shared vulnerability. "I'll help you," I called, taking a step closer, my pulse racing. "But you have to put that down. Show us you trust us. Please." The world felt suspended in that heartbeat, the torrential rain drenching our shared realities. Every fiber of my being screamed for him to see the light we could tap into together. "Why should I trust you?" he spat, the raw bitterness in his voice piercing through to the core of everything I wanted to say, to break through the walls fortifying his pain. "What do you know of loss?" Every word dripped with mistrust, lighting a fire in my guts. "Everything," I screamed back. The sudden fury shocked me, a surge of emotion bursting forth like pressure released from a boiling pot. "I know loss, I carry it with me every single day. But hiding from it won't bring you peace, it only traps you in darkness. Your son needs you, you need to let the light back in." He faltered, just for a moment, as though my words had grazed an echo of a memory he had buried so deep. In those precious seconds, hope flared between us like a shooting star, barely catching fire before shadows threatened to snuff it out again. The little girl stepped forward, still gripping her balloon, her innocence shining brighter than any words could. "You don't have to be scared anymore. We're here for you, please don't hurt anyone." Her voice, sweet and achingly pure, cut through the tension like a knife. I glanced at the boy's father, and for the first time, I saw the flicker of something beneath his anguish, a flicker that suggested perhaps he remembered joy once, too. But the sirens grew louder, punctuating the air with urgency, reminding us that time was slipping away. "You don't want anyone to get hurt," I pressed, the truth guiding my every thought. "Let us help you find a way together." A flash of uncertainty danced across his face as the raging storm of sirens swallowed up the moment, and the weight of his choices pressed down on him like a mountain. "I can't," he muttered, almost to himself. "I can't let them take me away from my family. In that brief silence, everything felt poised on a knife's edge. I sensed the possibility that this confrontation could either shatter our teetering hope or stitch together a united front against the darkness engulfing us, but then I felt Belle's gentle grip on my arm tightened, grasping the connection that lingered between us. "You aren't alone," she said softly, voice filled with an assurance I had nearly forgotten. "You don't have to fight this battle alone, we're all fighting our own, and we need your voice with us. Your son needs a father, and this girl needs a protector." The boy's father trembled, his defenses quaking as if he were finally understanding that his choices were just as entangled as ours. In that moment layered with desperation, I could see the first hint of light break through the shadow in his gaze. With a sudden decision, he stumbled back, dropping the weapon to the ground. The air shifted, almost electric, as if we had collectively exhaled a breath held too long. But instead of retreating into the night, he stepped forward from the brink of despair and drew close, trembling hands raised in surrender as he faced us. "That I am sorry," he whispered, a heartbreaking sincerity woven through his words. I didn't know how to fight back anymore," and it was in that vulnerable admission that we felt the tremors of change ripple through the very fabric of our connection to understanding that had eluded us for so long. The boy stepped in beside him, a look of pure relief lighting up his face, as if he were reuniting with a part of himself he had thought lost. "Dad, I'm here," he said, tears in his eyes that mirrored the love blooming in that storm. It wrapped around us, drawing together the threads of fragmented lives, stories beautifully entangled in our shared experience. Then, the little girl lifted her balloon into the air, the vibrant colors dancing against the backdrop of a fading storm. "Let's remember how to be happy, together," she exclaimed, her innocent hope striking at the very heart of our uncertainties. The laughter bubbled from the crowd, an unexpected wave cresting into the atmosphere surrounding us all, like a veil lifting, and as each heart lightened, I knew, in that moment of release, we had finally chosen to rise. They had chosen to rise with us. "Yes," I shouted, echoing the sentiment. "Together. We can do this together," the air filled with an inexplicable energy, the sound of unity reverberating through the hearts of those still gathered as more voices joined in a chorus of love, kindness, and understanding rising like a phoenix from the ashes. As we stood there, rain pouring down like a cleansing baptism, a new dawn began to form just beyond the horizon, a soft glow heralding the change we desperately needed. I squeezed Bella's hand, knowing that while our path ahead might still twist with shadows, we had found a light to guide us through, a bond stronger than the pain of the past. That I and the fading light, I saw the boy's father pull his son close, vulnerability mixing with vulnerability, while the girl twirled around them, her laughter echoing like a healing balm through the darkness. Each heart, once so individually tethered to sorrow, now pulsed with a rhythm of hope, illuminating the stormy paths of our intertwined fates. And in that moment, I realized, love doesn't erase loss, but it creates understanding in its wakea, chance for redemption, for new beginnings, for joy reclaimed amid the wreckage of our lives. With every ounce of my being, I promised to carry that thread of hope, forever intertwined with the stories we would continue to weave. As the rain finally slowed to a gentle drizzle, I heard the soft whispers of our journeys merging, the kaleidoscope of our lives transforming each heartache into a step towards something profound. "Together," I spoke, the word reverberating softly into the night, a testament to everything we had endured and everything we would become. And with that promise hanging in the air, I knew that what lay ahead would indeed change everything, for we had woven within ourselves a light too bright to be snuffed out, lighting the way for those who still needed it most. As the final raindrop fell, I felt something improbably, a soft brush against my skin, a gust of wind whispering through the fraying edges of our stories, reminding us that in this vast tapestry we created, hope would forever linger, beckoning us onward, stitching together the love that connected every last one of us. That I and the silence that followed, it wasn't the chaos nor the shadows that remained, but the undeniable, unwavering belief that love would guide us forward together until the end. And together we rose, like the phoenix from the ashes we had made, affirming each heartbeat, each breath, each hope, a resounding pledge to carry the light amidst the shadows of our past. "Together," I whispered again, feeling warmth swell within me, a timeless promise rising from our shared stories as the fading night began to reclaim the sky above, a patchwork of stars twinkling, song shining brightly through the darkness to paint our hopeful tomorrow.